Hello again, friends. Now, in the previous lecture, we saw the type coercion in JavaScript. Besides all that, we also learned how to declare many variables on the same line. So then we can just assign those values later on to the variables. Okay, so in this video, we're going to learn how to mutate variables. Now, before you go jumping to conclusions, I want to show you that there is something else that we also have in this programming language, and that is comments. So with comments, we can really comment. It's like a piece of code and then describe what they do. Okay, so let's try it out in JavaScript. And pretty much there are two types of comments. Of course, there are single-line comments, but there are also multi-line comments. So I'm going to show you in a second how and why they work. But I want to show you right now that with single lines, we just write / like this. And then we can do any text that we want to after that. So here I'm just simply going to put / before this console. So with that, we made this line a comment. So if we want to, we can comment out these three lines like this. So I'll put / before all these lines. And the languages we typically say comment out to describe this operation, right? Because after we make these lines comment or comment out, these lines will no longer be executed, right? So it just gets kind of diverted into a comment. So we made these lines passive, like this. Now, if I save all this and go to my browser, and if I refresh the page, you see how we don't see that console log anymore? Cool, so let's go back to our code editor again. All right, so now let me show you how to do a multi-line comment, and that is /*, and then /* again. And then everything we put here will be a comment. So if I cut these lines and put them in here, you see that this code block is a comment now. All right, so let's take our code back. And here we are going to use these comments throughout the course. At the moment, don't really need it because we still have enough space in our console. But in the upcoming lectures, we are going to use this method to comment out our code blocks, and then we can clear our console to be able to work. Okay, so let's now actually look at our variable mutation. So variable mutation basically means to just change the value of a variable. So that's something that we didn't really do up until this point. But of course, we are progressing, and this is one of the things that you can do with JavaScript variables. So it makes sense to learn it now. All right, so here we defined school number. So let's change its value. All right, so now let's say 22. Now this time, we won't use the var keyword. So this part is not necessary because the variable was already defined before it. It's already declared here in this space with a var keyword. So when we want to change it, we no longer need the var keyword. So all we need to say is school number and then the new value. So in this case, here is 22 as a string this time. And as you may remember from the last lecture, JavaScript automatically figures out the data type and then can change it on the fly. So knowing that, we can use that to our advantage. Before, it was a number, and now its new value is a string. All right, so that is the magic, if you will, of the JavaScript dynamic typing. Now, normally you can't do this thing in other programming languages. It's what kind of makes JavaScript special. In other languages, if you define a variable as a number, you can't change it into a string or basically any other data type. Okay, so now if we console log this variable, I'll just say console.log, and inside of it, I'll say school number. Now I'll go to my browser and refresh. So here we can see 22 as a string. All right, so let's go back to our code editor. Okay, so let's change the string to something else. We'll change the school team here. So school team, and we defined it here as basketball, but now I just want to change it to be tennis. All right, so let's log it again to the console. For that, I just console.log and school team inside of it. So when we look at this in our console, we see tennis as expected. Cool, so now I want to show you something else. So we've been logging these values to the console all the time, but now I want to use alert. So I just want to show you what alert is going to do. So we get a pop-up window is basically what happens. So to use this method here, I'll just say alert, and then my parenthesis, just like we did in console.log here. So inside of it, I'll say school team again. Now I'll go to my browser and refresh the page. So as you can see this time, we get a pop-up window, and inside of it, our tennis, which is the value of school team variable, is now visible. So you can see that basically the page here keeps loading until we actually hit OK right here and make this pop-up disappear. Okay, so the page is loading, and it can't really finish its work until we hit OK. Now there is another important development tool that we can use. I want to bring your attention to the prompt method. So with this method, we can enter a value from the browser and then save it into a variable. For example, let's say prompt and then parenthesis, and inside of it, I'll say, how old is he? So after we enter a value into this, we're going to save that answer. The value that we entered from the browser is saved into a variable. So I'm going to say var age. So this time I didn't say age equals 20 or 22, something like that. So I want to assign a value to this variable just by entering it from the browser. And then after I assign that value to this variable, I want to console log this variable again. So down here, I'll say console.log, and inside of it, I'll say Alex is plus sign age plus sign years old. Now let's go to the browser and refresh our page. So here we first see our alert, because before the prompt, we had an alert. So when I hit OK, we see our prompt, and here we can enter a value. I'll say 17, hit OK, and after that, at the bottom of the console, we see our console log, which says Alex is 17 years old. All right, so what we did here is this. We enter a value from prompt, then save that value into a variable. Here we just set age. Then later on, we can use this variable. So I just console log this variable. Like that. Okay, what do you think? So in this video, we learned how to mutate variables, as well as dynamic typing in JavaScript. And besides all that, we saw some different development tools as well, like alert and prompt. Very useful indeed. So we're going to take a quick pause right here, and we'll continue in the next section. See you then.